Alright. Hey guys, this is Wyatt. Coming out with my second video. And I don't really have a format or like a schedule of ideas on, what I'm going to put in what videos. It's very vague. I'm kind of freestyling these. So kind of bear with me. I'm kind of just winging these. But I think on this one, again, I'll be talking about CTE and, just on what I believe to be like, I'm going to describe things from my point of view. So as far, this is the truth from my point of view. I can't say I do have this, for sure, or that I don't. It's just, I believe that's what I'm dealing with, and I've felt compelled to speak out about it. And, I have to give some credit to Jordan B. Peterson. I've been watching his videos, and in the midst of some of my darkest times, it's like having a story and having a good foundation for how you look at the world, and one that makes sense too, has been extremely helpful. And making sense of the tragedy that happens in life that doesn't seem fair and seems corrupt and it's not. We're perfectly capable of making things worse and doing evil and tragic things, but life in and of itself is not evil and tragic. And if you're struggling out there, with mental health, or you're struggling, maybe you're getting picked on or anything. I don't know what your situation is. I've resorted to that nihilistic viewpoint in the past, and then in the pessimistic viewpoint I was, maybe I'll talk more about that again, like maybe in another video, but I've been there. Like in high school, that was my basic mindset. But what I've come to realize is that life isn't evil. It's not corrupt, and you can't challenge it. It's more perfect than you can realize. Even with the tragedy that's built into it, it's more perfect than you can even comprehend. So don't ever question it. That's a battle you're going to lose every time, you versus life. But life, maybe if you're lucky, it will teach you what you need to know before it takes you out. And I feel like that's the situation I'm in. And maybe someone finds this useful or insightful, or maybe not. Maybe this is just going to be strictly, for myself and what's helping me right now. But I thought I would talk about maybe like responsibility and where I think kind of that lays in the midst of this tragedy of the brain disease with these football players. But first, I'll just say, like, my situation right now, where I'm at in life is, I recently resigned from my job. I was just getting kind of stressed out, not that no one else does, or that I hadn't for a while, but I was stressed, and I didn't see much opportunity to go do anything else, or really a direction where I could go. With my job, I enjoyed it. It was a great opportunity for me. I liked everybody I worked with, and but I think my problem certainly played a major factor and made it awkward for me to get along with people, and made it harder for me to focus and do my job. And then I was stressed and trying to keep up with, among other things, I was ready for a break, and so I took some time off, and me and my fiance went out to Colorado for a week, and she was a great sport. She's the best sport, and she's like a huge support system in my life, so I'm very thankful for that. And my brother came with me, and that's just always going to be a really great memory in my head. Got to do a lot of camping, and but yeah, now it's time to come back, and I need to get back to work. But before I do, I want to make sure I take the time to do the type of stuff like this that gets really hard when you get done with the 9 to 5. You can't seem to find motivation to do this stuff. But pretty much what I want to say about the responsibility with this is that I think the way I looked at it, and maybe other guys have looked at it, is that, kind of like you feel kind of betrayed and that you're somewhat of a victim of this. And with that mindset, it would be really easy to want to become vengeful or vindictive on life, and to just want to fight back at the corruption and the betrayal you feel towards life. And I felt that, and I felt those things before, but I don't feel like it's a healthy mindset. I think with the problem with the CTE in football, I think certainly it's kind of like the NFL holds a fair responsibility that I believe they should own up to, but you have a bunch of capitalist cowards who are gonna, let people's lives be at the expense of their capital, and they wouldn't let that get in the way. What's a few, 100 or so people on the body count for our multi-billion-dollar thing to keep going? Nothing to them, And so I don't know, it'd be great if everyone owned up to their own responsibilities and held themselves accountable, because really that's kind of how you play the game of life and you be a fair sport. And the way the system's supposed to work is that when you don't do that, you're held accountable, and you could be taken to court or whatever. But we all know the system's corrupt, and I think that's the thing about, like, what's funny in a way. I haven't quite perfectly formulated my thoughts on this idea, but with the NFL and its fans and the players, and what's going on with, like, you're gonna protest because they're forcing you to not take a knee. Which I don't know. It's like, by the way, you'll find out who truly believes this is that big of a problem, because they'll sacrifice that paycheck if it was really something that you're called to do. These guys do have a choice. I mean, they're just pretty much making you choose, and most of them, unless you're like a rookie and you haven't got your first paycheck, most of these guys have already made more money than any of us. I think they could really make a point if they, you'd have to put your money where your mouth is. So that's the one thing I think. But then on the other hand, it's kind of like, are you guys really surprised? There's like a way deeper problem here, that this organization you play for has a body count that we don't know is how high, if you count college and all the other guys whose lives have been lost to this disease, or who have at least been essentially reduced to just trying to manage life on a day-to-day basis because of it. It's no way to live. If you could add all that up, it's like, oh, this is the organization who swept that under the rug, as if like all that is completely just negligible, like it doesn't matter. Like, are you surprised? I mean, like, this, and that's been out for years. I mean, the things that they've hidden and lied about, and it's not a priority to them. So your life was already known that your life isn't a priority to them. It's all about the sake of keeping the sport going. But anyways, regardless, maybe I shouldn't harbor too much on that. I guess, I feel like I see the responsibility for the NFL to take some ownership of responsibility. I feel like they could be held responsible to a certain degree. I think colleges could be held responsible to a certain degree. But thanks to like some of the things that I've learned, and I've been blessed and just reading about and learning about lately, is I've come to the realization that, ultimately I'm responsible, and I want to hold myself responsible for my actions. And part of that is, coming forward and telling the truth about what happened and what's really going on, and the way I perceive the truth from my point of view, because it's the truth, is in this is honestly what I believe happened. I may not have 100% facts, but this is what it looks like to me. And I guess part of that is that hold on, I lost my place just a second. So I feel like the way I see it is that, when I was playing the game, you really only thought about like your maybe like a neck injury, and like you were told keep your head up, because like putting your head down like that could potentially lead to something like you saw happen to Ryan Shazier. So you didn't know about this other problem, but you knew you were playing a dangerous game, and so you had to take responsibility. And I always felt like, in a weird way, a certain part of me knew when I was stepping on the football field, like it was life or death. Like you kind of like took it that way. I mean, most of the time I really did. I don't know, maybe it's because like you try to like inflict so much pain on people, I mean, it was just a violent sport, and that's just the mindset that you had. But regardless, I think you had to be held accountable. You didn't necessarily know what was going to happen to you. You were pushing the line, playing the game at a higher level, than what, you're always trying to take the game to the next level. And, you're pushing the limits of mankind, and that's something else that's like crossed my mind, is like, the idea that man has kind of always found himself in these different ways of like pushing himself to the limit, to where it's like, I don't know, it's very tragic on the one hand, like what happens when you push yourself to like the extreme of something, Sometimes it breaks the boundaries, and it's like pushes us into a new frontier. And sometimes you lose your life, or sometimes something really terrible happens, And it's like there's a certain calling from a man, I think, in that sense, that it's like you're drawn to that. And, you don't necessarily know what it is, but I also think, there's different facets where you can get that, and it doesn't have to be in like a violent gladiator sport arena. You could get that call to adventure and to pushing the boundaries in a lot of different ways, without losing your life, because the point of life is, to win the series of games. You have to make it to the next game. This can't be the end all, this sport you play when you're in high school and your 20s or throughout childhood, that can't be the end all, I mean, you're 20, you don't realize it, but one day you're going to want to be 90 and have grandkids and have a long, fulfilling life. That's the end game. That's the game that you make it to eventually. If you play all the other games right, but I think football, like, framing that, like, life or death mentality, in of a gladiator sport is, like, it's the wrong mindset, it's like, so that's just kind of some of my thoughts on like where football lies in my mind. I think basketball or something would have been a way better option. Maybe I wish I would have like gotten into that, but I was drawn to the physicality of football and its violent nature, so it's like there's something to be said about that too. There's something that draws these guys into that too. And it was the unknown. It was a young sport, and that's something you don't think about. But you always have to be aware and be cautious of what's lurking around the corner that you don't know about. That is your perception. That's like your instinctive nature to like be alerted to something. Like stay aware. Be ready. You don't know what's could be lurking around the corner, or you don't know what could necessarily happen if you do that, and it's like you don't make the rules alive, so you have to be cautious and be aware, and you play a violent sport for that long without being precautious of that, and there's a price to pay, and unfortunately, I don't think that was thought of enough. Anyways, I'm kind of rambling again. Like I said, I didn't have a set, idea. I'm just trying to get some ideas out. I guess in general, I just say like I want to hold myself accountable for my actions, and that I can own up and live with whatever it is that I have to live with because of my actions. It doesn't mean it doesn't really scare me at times, or it doesn't mean that I don't think about or daydream about it going all back to normal. Maybe that sometimes this could just be like a bad dream that I would wake up from, but I think like at the end of the day, and like when I'm in my best moods, and when I'm thinking the most positively about life, I'm thinking about owning this responsibility for my actions. And part of that is me telling my story as truthfully as I can. And so that's what I'm going to try and do. And I think there's lots of people out there that are going through unimaginably hard things. I don't think for a second that like my story is the saddest tragedy on earth. It's like maybe the saddest thing I personally relate to, because I'm going through it. You're pretty empathetic towards your own story, and I haven't had a lot of other really sad things happen in my life. I haven't had a lot of really close friends or family, anything happen with them. But then again, I also have tended to distance myself from life and from people, and so maybe that's that kind of being that loosely tied to reality is not a good coping mechanism. It will really hurt you in the long run. So I also suggest don't do that. But I think I can own up to what I did. I wish I wanted to have played football, or maybe like I could have ended at the right point. I think back and think, maybe I wish I never would have got that call from Coach Quinn to go, invite me to Mid-America. There was like a million different things where I wish I could have changed, because it was like, I also asked to leave twice and they encouraged me to come back. And, I'm very high in trait agreeableness on the Big Five. So it's like, it's going to be harder for me to stand up for myself. I pretty much went in there and did my best. Like, I'm leaving, like, and, like, they really talked me into staying and stuff. And it was like, they didn't even really give me anything. They're just like, oh, yeah, you should move home with your parents. That'll save, like, $7,000. Like, okay, yeah, I was so agreeable, I went along with it. And I don't know if subconsciously I just knew something was going on, but, I don't know if I should quite get into that. I think I just want to say that, you would like for the NFL or the colleges to own up and be responsible. And I think, or, you would think that you would like to, see your day in court and see them held accountable. I don't really expect that to happen, and I don't plan on like going to court or filing a lawsuit. I think that mentality, it's not wrong altogether, but I think in America it's gone too far. Like the lady that can sue, Oreos for making her fat. It's like, no, I think that's gone too far. I think there's a point now in America where it's like we need to go back to doing things right. It's like you need to be held accountable for your actions. There's not like an easy way to get out all the time. And I think you can start with yourself, because as far as we can tell, the system's broke, like everyone who should have been held accountable in 2008 is, has bonuses and is living nicely, and who knows, like maybe they'll make off with another like $300 million during the next financial collapse. Like, it's a bunch of crooks, like, giving each other like handouts and scratching each other's backs, and it's the court system is not, it's like justice doesn't prevail. You see it time and time again. And I think like, rage, taking that into like a misdirected rage into just destroying things is unproductive. I think what you can do, and like ultimately this is like really all you really can do in life, is like be accountable for yourself, be accountable for your actions, do the best that you can do, and pretty much that's what I want to do. And yeah, that's what I want to do.